Welcome back, Wolfpack Rollers here, and this is how to use Drapion. If there's one guide I get absolutely correct, I want it to be this Drapion guide for my man Berto. So let's go and look at Drapion's stats, and right now we have a really interesting balance of stats. That we have anywhere from low on the special attack to pretty solid on that defense. 70 hit points, 110 defense. We can turn this Pokemon into a really tanky Pokemon, as well as just the breakdown of its other stats. For some reason, this Pokemon has 95 speed. I'll take it. I have a 90 attack as well, so we can put out some damage. 75 special defense means we can tank up some special hits. Overall, this Pokemon does have a lot of things in its kit that can make it a monster. Does also have a good amount of base tankiness and damage. Now let's go and look at its typing, Poison Dark. So with Skuntank, I already looked at it and I got surprised. I mean, this has to be one of the most powerful typings in the game. Offensively, your stab is beautiful. That when we get that super effective coverage against fairy type Pokemon, we also get that resistance against fairy type Pokemon for our dark typing to make it neutral. Overall, the typing is so balanced. Just one ground weakness. That's all that you have to worry about. Other than that, you have an immunity to Psychic and a lot of resistances, and the rest are just neutral hits. So, I mean, very strong typing. To go with the stats, it's very balanced, but at the same time, it's enough to really make this Pokemon go insane. So, let's go and hop into Pokemon Showdown where we can just start the legacy right here with Berto. So Berto was in a Fan Fridays, and his Drapion went nuts. And that's what this Pokemon's all about. That you have the ultimate mix of tankiness, damage, sustain. You have a lot of different things that you can run. Well, actually, you don't have heavy sustain, but you are tanky enough to get sustain off of just Black Sludge, which is kind of crazy. In double battles, you can do a lot of things that we'll talk about. Overall, the Pokemon is, as Berto has put it, it's a Swiss Army knife. That it's a multi-tool kit that you can pretty much do whatever you want with your team with, and that's really good. So what Berto did was set up Toxic Spikes. Toxic Spikes is very interesting because the first time you use it, it's going to just be a layer of regular poison. The second time you use it, it actually creates a layer of toxic poison. So if you get 2 Toxic Spikes out, now your opponent's going to have a very hard time. A lot of the Pokemon that come in, they're going to be poison, toxic poison, and that just creates a lot of really strong stall aspects. After that, you have Knockoff, and this is why it's a very strong Pokemon, because you go Toxic Spikes, so you're getting status across the field, and then you can throw down a Knockoff and just remove items. So that's what Drapion wants to do. It wants to switch out a lot of Pokemon, wants to force people into very unfortunate circumstances, bring in Drapion to tank up a hit, knock off, switch it out, bring it in, knock off, switch it out, while you're just distributing poison. And now it's a frustrating Pokemon frustration. If you want to bring in Drapion for the long haul, that's when you set up against a Pokemon that isn't doing a lot of damage to you, or another setup Pokemon, and you just throw out the Acupressure. We saw that Berto's Drapion, it got like a couple of defensive boosts, but it most importantly got evasion. That Acupressure does have a random chance to boost any stat by 2, and that includes evasion, which means if you get that free minimize off of that random chance, you stall behind that protect, you get the Black Sludge going, you might gain some defenses. Now you just stall it out, you wait for that poison, you throw out the knockoff, and then some really crazy things happen. But this is just one set. Drapion has a lot of other crazy things it can do, such as if you don't want to run Toxic Spikes, you want to strategically poison Pokemon. Like, Toxic Spikes can mess you up for a team like mine. I run Sableye, I want to get Will-O-Wisp across the field. I also have a Rotom from time to time. I'm really trying to shut down physical Pokemon really heavily, and with that, Toxic Spikes ain't going to cut it, because now the Pokemon coming in is poisoned, and I can't burn it, and that's bad. So if you want to do that, I would think about either Toxic. Toxic is really nifty, because if you're a Poison-type Pokemon using Toxic, it never misses. And that could be pretty huge. Also, what I was looking at is Poison Fang. Because Drapion is a tankier Pokemon we're not expecting to do damage, we can throw out the Poison Fang for a little bit of chip damage and badly poisoning the target. That Poison Fang, while it does have that low base power, 50% chance to badly poison is really nice. Now, one thing about Drapion is you are susceptible to taunt. So if you do get taunted, you can still throw out the Poison Fang, have that chance to poison, then you can switch out, use Knockoff, do whatever, and Drapion is just very scary from there. As for the stat breakdown of Berto's Drapion, Impish Nature, you just gotta boost heavily into that defense, max out the hit points, or put the rest into defense, and then some special defense investment. 70 base hit points isn't the tankiest thing, but when you invest a little into that special defense, you actually get a really big, you get quite a lot out of it, so that's going to make your Drapion very powerful, and that is something to consider. So this is Berto's Drapion. You can use it, you can use some kind of variation, but it's mostly just the template. that this is a video series about guides, that I'm not here to say this is exactly how you always use this Pokemon, that the entire series holds a philosophy of this is a guide, it's a template, you can change it however you feel. If you think something's different, you can do that. There's so much diversity to Pokemon, and that's the real beauty about it, is that your team might be different. Your team might not like to run Drapion like this, so you can change up the set, or you can go with a completely different set. Drapion, also good as just a really crazy attacker. Now, this is a very interesting Drapion set. So what we're doing is we're taking its natural defenses, we're taking its good hit point stats, and then we're just going to throw an Assault Vest onto it and go for the damage with the 90 base attack. Now, the idea behind this is you are going for super effective hits, or you're just going for some really good coverage overall. And the thing is, with 95 base speed, you actually have a good foundation for speed, so you can use a move like Rock Tomb. Maybe drop a little bit of hit point investment, put into the speed, that way if you find like a certain speed tier is threatening your team, you can have Drapion outspeed that and handle the threats, because what you do is you bring in Drapion, you use Rock Tomb. 100% chance to lower the target speed by 1, so it's going to cut it to, I think, 66%, so they lose a third of their speed, and depending on whatever math and calculations you need to do for that, now you're outspeeding them, so you Rock Tomb into a Knockoff. That's a stab knockoff, and if it's a very high powerful hit after the Rock Tomb, you know, you might find a KO. If not, it's going to be a 3-hit KO on a lot of Pokemon, 2-hit KOs if you're hitting super effective, 1-hit KOs if you're getting frail or weakened super effective hits. You know, Drapion's not meant to do absurd amounts of damage, but it just doesn't take damage as well. That with this Assault Vest, you're really not going to be threatened by too much, so you just tank up those hits really well, and then you go for the coverage. Now, one thing you can also do is throw in the Poison Jab. I just like having the idea of Ice Fang because flying type Pokemon, but you are hitting them with the Rock Tomb, but you have that extra damage against dragons, so really it's kind of whatever you want to do. With Poison Jab, you're just going to get a good amount of damage, chance to poison the target, little bit of hacks here and there, but overall just a filthy tank that refuses to accept damage as an option. Think about it as more of a physical variant of Goodra. That an Assault Vested Goodra just does not take any damage, and it can dish out a wide variety of attacks. Drapion does the same thing. It has Fire Fang, Thunder Fang, crazy coverage access between its kit, and you might want to look into that. So that's why I have Pokemon DB open. I've been using it a lot more just to get my point across. I think it does bump up the quality of my videos a lot. So your stab is Dark Poison. Let's do that. 19 not very effective hits. We throw in Ground. Boom. It's all neutral effective hits or better or super effective hits. Now, some guides I have seen, they include Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is actually super unoptimized because if you're just running Poison Dark and then Steel with, or Poison Dark and Water with some kind of other like setup move or something like that, Aqua Tail isn't really going to bring too much. You do want that ground typing, you just trash Pokemon with the ground typing. Or Ice Fang. Ice Fang is going to make it to where you still have a couple of not very effective hits, but it is going to boost up your like super effective coverage into insanity. So if you're going for those kind of hits, that's what we're talking about. We also have to like incorporate the Rock Tomb, so it's kind of however you want to run it, but overall we find like a really good mix. Actually, with the Rock we get a lot more super effective hits than Ground Ice, so it's the coverage you're looking for. You can pretty much use Drapion as the handle to what most of your team is threatened by, that it has a lot of really good check situations. It just comes in and it works, and that's the beautiful thing about Drapion. And again, it's a toolkit. You can use it for whatever you need to, and there's other ways you can run it. That we just have a more stall aspect behind it. That we like set up Toxic Spikes, we use taunts, so that way they can't like counter set up, and then we just knock off Whirlwind. That Drapion, you know, you give it a Black Sludge, and then you just, that's your only form of sustain. Like if Drapion got Recover, or Moonlight, or something that would make sense for it having sustain, it would be almost unstoppable. So that is the weakness. If you're in double battles, give it a Heal Pulse. That it can acupressure itself, or it can acupressure an ally. So you're acupressuring an ally, and then you're heal pulsing yourself, and you're just kind of creating a nice little ecosystem of sustain and support. Drapion's really good at that. It can taunt in doubles, it can knock off in doubles. It can just kind of have all sorts of really good setup. It has coverage. So back to singles. With this, you know, you Whirlwind Knockoff, Whirlwind Knockoff. You know, eventually, if you have Toxic Spikes down, you get a Knockoff, you use Whirlwind, you taunt a Pokemon that Whirlwind's in, and then you try to set up against it. Pretty much you're just going to like be the most frustrating disruption Pokemon until you go down. That Drapion, it isn't looking to sweep. It's looking to put your team into an ungodly favorable advantage. That with this, okay, this one can stall out, maybe go for a heavy late game off a Poison Stall and just becoming unkillable through acupressure and good sustain from the Protect. But with this, you know, Whirlwind Knockoff, taunt, Whirlwind Knockoff, and then like if you get to remove 2 items and get 2 poisons on your opponent's team, you can win the battle off of that. And Drapion, it's going to be good for that. You know, you can taunt something, get like the predictive switch, because if they have a setup Pokemon, you taunt it, they're going to switch out. So you switch out into what you think they're switching into, you get that counter switch option, and then they're getting Toxic Spikes, so now you just win. Other than that, Drapion also has Swords Dance, so if you want Drapion to be a more offensive Pokemon, it does have that 95 base speed. And it does have the tankiness. There's some interesting things you can do here. Hit point speed investment, that way we're more looking to be a wall breaker, that we set up the Swords Dance, and then we just hit our coverage. Knockoff, Earthquake, Poison Jab, we get the goods down, and then we just do a lot of damage. So I wasn't thinking about heavy physical investment, like for the attack, because we were using Swords Dance. We Swords Dance once, now we're over 450, and then we have good coverage, and we're not taking damage. So maybe you can play around with it, find the damage calculations that you specifically need for your team. Remember, Drapion, it is that fit. It is the Pokemon that you need to experiment with to get the right mix on your team, and then it becomes just ridiculous. So you can go with a Jolly Nature maybe, but really you're not looking for heavy outspeeds. If you have a Sticky Web on your team already set up, Drapion is going to run away with that, however. So set up the Swords Dance and then go into some ferocious hits. Knockoff, Stab, Poison Jab, super effective Earthquakes, it's insane. And Drapion also has Keen Eye. Keen Eye is amazing to counter out evasion because it ignores their evasion stat. So if you see a Pokemon setting up Double Team, setting up Minimize, you bring in Drapion, you knock off. So now you're going to be able to hit that Minimize Chansey, knock off the Eviolite, do absurd amounts of damage, and its Minimize meant nothing. Same for any kind of Pokemon setting up like that. Double Team Dusclops gets completely destroyed by this kind of setup, and at the same time, you know, if you're going for the tankier sets, Battle Armor is really nice because it makes it to where you cannot be crit. So all of your damage calculation is going to be very just straightforward, that okay, they did a third of my health, I'll heal leftovers, I'll take a third, I'll take a third. No random crits can ruin your day when you're running Battle Armor, so it makes it very calculating when you run that. Or Keen Eye makes it to where if you're afraid of evasion that much, this is your pure evasion counter right here. You knock off their item, you punch their evasion, or you can even like whirlwind them out or do something. It's anti-setup, it's setup, it's damage, it's tanky filth. Drapion, OP is all I've got to say. And Berto, he is a madman, you know, same mind that brought us Torkoal, same mind that just wants to do whatever he wants. He finds the hidden talents of Pokemon. He is one of my inspirations, and I know I am one of his. We have helped each other through years, and it's just one of those things like Drapion, it's his gym, just like how I have many of my gyms, and I hope I did an excellent job bringing it into the spotlight. Now remember, since this is a guide, and since Drapion is a very, very mechanical Pokemon, you know, it will find times where it fails. It will find times where it just utterly succeeds. That's just how Pokemon plays, you know? So you do have to learn the mastery behind it. That, with Torkoal, with a lot of Berto's Pokemon, does take a lot of, like, situation calculation, that you need to be in that situation before to know how to capitalize on it, and then you get the most out of it. I had a Pokemon damage calc up for a bit, but I don't remember where that went. Because I was on the Pokemon Global Link, wanted to see what other people were running on the battle spot and like in doubles or stuff. So if we go back to this, I did a calculation. So say we have an Impish Nature, full hit point, full defensive tank Drapion, and we eat a high jump kick from a Mega Lopunny. How much damage do you think that's going to do? That's a stab high jump kick, one of the highest base damage moves in the game from a Mega that has an absurd amount of attack. It only does less than 50%. So it's a 3-hit KO on high jump kicks. You can technically get that prediction on the Protect and really mess up a Lopunny's day, but it just kind of shows how tanky you can be on the physical aspect. You don't have to fully evolve into defense. You can evolve a little in the special defense, still be a 2-3-hit KO Pokemon after the Black Sludge, and there's a lot of just tankiness and utility that Drapion brings. Do not pass it up, or look for similar Pokemon, like Hippowdon. I actually started running Hippowdon as a full defensive tank on my recent Showdown team, and it does wonders. That Whirlwind set, utterly brutal. I'm actually kind of a little disappointed I didn't sell it as hard as I did, because that thing comes in, eats almost any physical hit, can actually survive a Zoomerl really well, which is one of the surprising things. It's like a 3-hit KO with a Zoomerl. You're throwing out Rocky Helmet and Earthquake damage. You can actually take that boy out in some situations. Really good what that what Hippowdon can do, and just overall there's a lot of gems in Pokemon, especially on that tanky aspect. If you make it fit your team, you can be rewarded, and that's what Pokemon is all about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you all stayed to the end, because this is a very, very powerful guide, and I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Berto, as always.